In this SMC outlook, I'm sharing my exact trade plan for the DXY, the euro, the pound, and also gold. So if we haven't met yet, my name is Justin Bennett, Forex trader since 2007, full-time trader since 2011. And as always, all of this is my opinion only and not financial advice. So before we get into the charts, I do want to mention on a personal note, as some of you know, our 2-year-old son was admitted to the hospital this past week with pneumonia. He just had a nasty virus he couldn't shake for a few days. And so he was in the hospital for a few days on, oxygen, scary times. But I really appreciate all the kind words and support and prayers from you guys. It really means a lot. It's always scary when you have, especially a little one that's hospitalized like that. But look, guys, I mean, trading is what I do, but it's not who I am. And family comes first. And so I really, really appreciate all of the kind words and support and prayers. It means a lot to me and my family. Okay, so looking at the DXY, guys, let's get into this here. So looking at the DXY US dollar index, obviously we had a big move lower last week. I wasn't around the charts, obviously, last week being in the hospital with our son. But looking here, what we got from the DXY on the 1 hour time frame. We did have obviously the market breaking below this low back here, giving us a break of structure. Even before that, though, we had the change of character happen right back here. Okay, so off of this low here, you can see we did get a BOS above the high. Okay, so this close up here gave us a confirmed BOS. That meant that this was our external high. We had the close below over here. We got the move back here into this imbalance. Notice this candle right here on the 1 hour, and this was the retrace there before the sell-off. Now, even before this, though, there were early indications that this could be coming. So what I mentioned in the last SMC outlook, if you saw that video, is I mentioned that off of some of these lows, we had a distribution channel off of these highs and lows. So you often see this within trends where you get the market essentially distributing to the buy side and sell side. And so this right here, what I mentioned in the last video, was that acceptance below here could be an early warning sign that we're about to get a reversal from the US dollar. And that's exactly what we got. Okay, and another thing I mentioned in the last video too, if you saw that, was I made it a point to mention to you guys that this right over here, okay, so from this low right back here during this run up, so this was back here in October, this was our external low. We had acceptance below here, okay, and this was significant last week as well because this was essentially a retrace of this move lower, okay. In other words, we had the close below the acceptance below here. Below this low, that gave us a 4-hour change of character. This was also confirmed on the daily as well. And so that meant that this move, this entire move up here, was essentially just a retrace of this larger down move, okay? And that's what I mentioned in last week's video too, that was something to be aware of going into last week, okay, at the start of last week. And again, that acceptance below the bottom of this distribution channel right through here was that early warning sign that we were going to get a reversal. This change of character confirmed it. Okay, now as far as what we get next week, there are a few things that I'm looking at here in terms of potential areas where we could see some demand develop. So the very first thing is if we go back here and look at some of these lows, I'm actually going to go to a daily time frame and check this out here because there is something down here. And it's even more noticeable in the euro and the pound, which we'll talk about next. But this candle right back here, okay, this candle, specifically this wick, is something that I've had my eye on for a while now. So essentially below this low right here, this area, this pocket right here, okay, if we just draw this out, really between this high here all the way down here to this area. So this is something I've had my eye on for quite some time now. You can see where we had this displacement out of this low. And unlike back here, you can see where we kind of chopped around here on this low, this right here, we had displacement, impulsive move out of here, a very shallow retrace, and then another impulsive move. And so that means that there is an imbalance back here in this area. So that could be where the DXY is headed here over the coming days. Now, the market's also getting very stretched though at the end of last week. So that's also something to be aware of where we could see a retrace into some of these buy side imbalances here too, potentially these lows back here before we get a continuation. But this area down here, right around 97 is something I've had my eye on for some time. And furthermore, if we go to a 4-hour time frame, now that we have that area marked out and go to a 4-hour here, you can see that off of these highs up here, so this high right back here, also this one, if we draw a distribution channel down here again, and again, this isn't about just blindly buying and selling from this area. This is just knowing that markets love symmetry and knowing that when you get a trend like this, if you imagine a midpoint through here and you imagine that, the market does distribute to the buy side and sell side like this, then all I'm looking for right now is potentially something similar down here around 97. Okay, now something to be aware of though is if you look at this here, it doesn't mean that we just come down here and test this area and then just bounce immediately, right? That's not what I'm calling for. What I'm looking for though would be confirmation on the low time frames that we are going to get some type of a bottom forming, and that just goes back to SMC, right? All we're doing at that point is just looking at the 1 hour time frame, even the 15-minute time frame, and looking for some type of low time frame bottom down here for potentially a reversal into some of those imbalances. So will we get it? We'll have to wait and see, but just keep in mind though, like you look back here at this bottom that formed, this was essentially between December 16th and December 24th, really on Christmas. So this took, a week plus, almost 2 weeks for the DXY to fully bottom out down here. So again, I'm not saying that we're just going to come down here and test this area and then bounce immediately. But we could see some type of demand form down here in this area for the DXY. So that is one thing I'm watching over the coming days. But clearly right now, sellers are in control. And also too, like I mentioned before, we do have this, 4-hour change of character that occurred back here. Okay. So when you look at this in the context of this low, we had acceptance below here, giving us that change of character. And so right now, sellers are clearly in control. Okay. So let's move on here to the euro. And, as we'd expect, this market had a massive move up last week, especially at the end of last week. And one thing here too that I pointed out in the last video was that we also had a distribution channel here on the euro as well. Really nice channel where you can see, all the highs up here. Again, we're just distributing right within a mean of this trend. So if you imagine the mean goes through here, we've got distribution to the sell side, we've got distribution to the buy side. Okay, so that's all this is. We're not nailing tops and bottoms with this channel. All we're doing is just knowing that the market loves symmetry, knowing that we get distribution like this when you have a trend. And then this acceptance above was your early warning sign that we were about to get a reversal. Now, the reason that this is so handy is you see this over and over again. I made a video on this distribution channel too. Go check out the channel for the full video. But over and over again, what you'll see is that this actually confirms long before a change of character. So this confirmed through here, we had the change of character off of this high, okay? Because we had the break of structure down here. That meant this was our external high. We had the close above over here, retrace, and continuation. Now, the key to this though, or the beautiful thing about this is that this right here gave you that early warning sign that we were potentially about to reverse higher before the change of character occurred, which was all the way up here. So this gave you early warning sign that buyers were starting to step in. Okay, and it just goes back to a change in the behavior, a change in something that we saw before, right? We saw this before through here. This was the behavior from the euro, and this right here was the change in that behavior. And clearly that was the case. Okay, now another thing too, in terms of the recent price action from the euro, and I made a video on this too last week, so check out the channel again for the full video on that. But these right here on the lower time frames, I'm not going to talk about this too much because I did make that full video. But this right here, these were perfect short opportunities where you had the high form, you had stops build above the highs, you had the sweep, you had the acceptance below the lows. And this on the 15-minute time frame actually gave an entry through here. And both of these too, I just want to point out that both of these on the DXY, which is essentially the inverse of this, I called out in real time in Discord. So I just want to be clear on that. Again, I'm not trying to flex. This is just, I want to be clear that this isn't just me talking about stuff in hindsight and saying, look at these patterns that formed. Both of these patterns on the DXY were called out in real time in Discord for members as they set up, literally as they set up, talking about a potential continuation of that DXY trend that we saw during this time. Okay, so both of those right there, really nice liquidity sweep reversals here on the euro, and they both occurred from really nice areas as well. Like if you just assume this up here is your external high, down here to your low, you can see we were right there in the OTE as well. And then in this case down here, you can see right off of the top of this distribution channel. And this is why these are so key as well. And you'll see markets do this over and over again. It's not just cherry picking, it's not just this one instance, it happens over and over again. And to prove that too, looking at the DXY, you look at this here, again, this is just a distribution channel. This is the same exact concept. Okay, so this down here, if we do see a bottom form here over the coming weeks, again, it could be a short-term bottom, right? We could just come up here with some buy-side imbalances before a continuation lower. But the point here is that if a bottom forms down here, this is just, more proof that these distribution channels do work and there's something to pay attention to. Okay, so let's move on here to the pound, which, monster move last week. Friday's candle is just massive here. And what I'm looking at right now, obviously buyers are in control. Okay, we did have last week, I want to point this out too, just so that you guys are aware that we also, talk about this stuff in real time. And Discord members will know this, but you can see that back here during this uptrend, we did have a change of character occur right here. So this was our BOS, right? The acceptance above the highs. That meant that this was our external low. Also really nice because we did sweep internal liquidity. So internal, external. And then this down here was our change of character. That meant that we were looking for shorts through here. And sure enough, there was an imbalance here, especially on the 4-hour time frame. You could see it. And this too, again, here is that same exact pattern that I keep talking about in these videos, even the YouTube shorts that I'm making, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. I keep talking about this, and here you can see it again. Okay, you got the high back here, stops built above the high. We swept those stops, and then we had acceptance below the low right here. That confirmed this reversal. The market came back here into this imbalance. This was your short, and we talked about this. We nailed this in Discord, in fact, to 1 pip or so on this pullback. And again, Discord members know what I'm talking about. Okay, so really nice move right there. And by the way, too, guys, if you do want my framework for how I trade SMC, it's a 3-part series. Check out the link here in this video in the description as well on that free training that you can get. It's the exact same way that I trade full time every single day. So here we had, breakup structure. So this short too played out really nicely. We had the high, we had the sweep, we had the acceptance below, we had the short through here, right? Short on the retrace. And so that played out really nicely. Now, since that time, we did have a BOS down here below the low. And then that meant this was our external high. We had the close above over here. Now, since that time, clearly we really haven't had much of a retrace here from the pound. It has really just been straight up at the end of last week. Okay. So the market is getting very stretched here. I would kind of expect to see some kind of pullback here to start the week. But one thing I'm watching on the pound here, and really the same thing for the euro, and I'll circle back to that one. But this up here, so this wick here on the daily, this right here is not only the 50% of this wick, which you often see markets, if you get a 50% of a wick like this, often markets will revisit this area. But you can also see where if I go back here, I'm going to turn on bar replay so that we can head back here toward this area. But if we go back here and I go to something like a 15-minute time frame. Okay, so let's just take a look at this as this forms. All right, so the market comes up here and there's the 50%, but I want to show you guys this here quickly. All right, so we get the market essentially putting in, and this is the low right here on the 15. So we get the market essentially putting in this massive displacement candle to the downside. Now, we did get a retrace into this, a partial retrace, but notice how we never came up here. We never came up here in this area. Okay, so for me, this is kind of my target for the pound over, the coming days and potentially next week or two. This area up here around 136.90. And again, this on the 15-minute time frame, the low right here in this FEG through here, this fair value gap. If you look at this on the daily, and we just turn off bar replay here real quick, you look at this on the daily, again, this is the 50% of this wick. Okay, so if I come in here with my fibs, even though I have a modified fib, you can still see the 50%. It's this red line right here. And you can see that this lines up exactly with that 15-minute low right through here. So again, 136.90, 137, this is going to be an area I think that we should be keeping a close eye on with the pound over the coming days. Now, as far as a pullback though, right, as far as a pullback with the pound, obviously we have some imbalances that have formed down here. Whether or not we see the market actually give us a retrace, I mean, there's really 2 scenarios here. We either open next week and we just head straight up here toward this area and then get a reversal here toward those sell side imbalances. Or we get the pullback early down here toward imbalances like this, and then we head higher. Okay, so essentially pulling back against these highs before we essentially head up here toward 137. So that's really going to dictate what I do next week. If we get a pullback early and then we get a low time frame, change of character down here, then I may be looking for longs through here with a target of 136.90. If we head straight up here, then that makes it a little bit more difficult because, obviously without that pullback, we're not getting a buying opportunity. But, ultimately, again, I think that this area up here is going to be one to watch for the pound. And heading back here toward the euro too, I do want to also point this out. So looking at the daily, I didn't cover this, or at least I don't believe. Sorry, guys, I'm a little tired after being in the hospital with our son for a few days, a little sleep deprived. But looking at this high right back here with this wick right here, you can see this is essentially pretty close to the 50% of this as well. And it's a similar situation for the euro back here as well. And markets don't forget this stuff. And that's the important thing to understand, is that when you get the market essentially breaking highs like this, like it did last week, and looking bullish toward a level like this, the closer it gets to here, the more this is going to serve as a magnet. So if we go back here, once again, snap it back here toward this area and go to a 15-minute time frame. Okay, I'll play this through quickly just so we can move on to gold. But the market came up here in this area, and you can see that right there is the 15-minute candle, very similar to the pound. So this is that low here on the 15-minute time frame, and this is our fair value gap up here. We never really saw the euro come up here following this high, this top that formed. We never saw it come up here into this area. to fill in this region. Okay, so this never did it, and this is just a huge void in the market right up there, right around like 118.80. I would say that's going to be an area to watch. Okay, both as a potential target and as an area where we could see a reversal from the euro. Okay, and the interesting thing about this too, guys, is that this also, if you actually look at this here once again, right, we have this high back here. What do? We swept the high, and then we closed below the low that triggered the sweep. Okay. So I'm just pointing this out because once again, there is that same pattern. There is that liquidity sweep reversal. And this one too was also profitable. Okay. So there it is again, a little bit different form here because we had this huge wick above, but this still qualifies, right? On the close below, you had to move back here toward the imbalance right here into this pocket. And then that was your short. Okay. So these patterns form over and over again, guys. And once you train your eye to see them, you'll start noticing them everywhere. Now, the key to them, though, is to find context first. Don't just go out there and start hunting for patterns. Look at context first and really map out the market before you start looking for those patterns. Okay, don't actively look for the patterns. Wait for them to come to you, if that makes sense. Okay, so next up we have gold here, XAUUSD. This one should be pretty quick, guys, because really there's not a lot. I mean, other than this massive uptrend, gold's basically doing the same thing it did back here. So just, bullish candle after bullish candle, same thing last week. Okay, just a huge move here from gold. Now, the one thing I will say though is we are approaching that $5,000 level, which psychologically $5,000 is going to be maybe significant for gold. And the same thing when you look at silver. Silver just hit $100 last week. It actually closed at 103. So that is something to be aware of early next week with, gold approaching 5K here, just under that mark, and then silver right around that $100 area, potentially some psychological selling up here in this region. Okay, but I doubt, barring something significant, I doubt we get, a huge retrace here from gold. I think really, if you're looking to buy this trend, it's just a matter of waiting for a retrace and then a lower time frame change of character to get long. Okay, obviously shorts are off the table here, at least for me. This is not a market that I want to be shorting. This is a market I want to be looking for buys on pullbacks only. All right, so that is today's video, guys. I hope it helped. If it did, be sure to keep it locked in here to the channel, subscribe, have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you again on Monday.